Welcome to But What About Me, a career success podcast dedicated to giving a voice to underrepresented populations, or UPs, and helping each navigate their career to reach their highest potential. This podcast is brought to you by JenniferTardy.com. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of But What About Me? And I am your host, Jennifer Tardy. Today's guest, Ericka Spradley, was a gift to our show. She and I met a couple of months ago through a mutual acquaintance, and it was during our meet and greet that I learned about her passion for career coaching. Her personal story inspired me enough to invite her immediately to be a part of the show. And oh boy, we talked about a lot of hot topics. Now, my favorite part was hearing her story, like her personal story. She has a powerful story of how she stepped out on faith and forged a career with no degree, and how she learned then and there about the power of transferable skills and why she thinks that her success is one that can be shared or mimicked by anyone else who's also in her shoes. We discuss how it can be easy to be hard on ourselves, to question our worth or our competitiveness, and to sometimes even overcompensate without a degree, and how sometimes we can stay far too long on a job for the same reasons. We talk about the role confidence plays in career success, and even how Erika infuses faith into her coaching model. Phew. What a good show. Let me tell you just a little bit about Erika. Now, Ericka Spradley is the Chief Power Officer of Confident Career Woman, which is the premier consulting firm for corporations and mid-career professional women who desire to advance, better manage their career, and to go further faster. She believes every woman should excel at work, but more importantly, that every woman should know their worth, which serves as a catalyst for her latest book, Confident Career Woman, Ditch Perfection, Play Bigger, and Make Power Moves. As an experienced coach, author, former hiring manager, and interview trainer, not only does she offer long-term career guidance, she offers universal principles and transformational advice that helps clients uncover their competitive advantage in a way that maximizes their career. Hey, don't forget, if you like what you are hearing at any point in this podcast, be sure to take a quick picture of the podcast episode page that you're watching and post it to Instagram. And if you do that, do not forget to tag us at Your Career Success. Now, are you ready to meet this phenomenal soul? Good. Let's get started. Well, good morning, Erika. We are back with another episode of But What About Me? And how are you doing this morning?
Well, good morning, Jennifer. I am well. I'm actually coming off of 4 events over 3 business days in 2 different states. So I'm well rested and pretty excited about what's to come.
And I saw you all over LinkedIn, a gorgeous dress you had on. What was that event?
Okay, so thank you for saying that. And can I just tell you, and I know this is live, but I do not mind sharing. I have so many compliments on that dress, and it was from Ross Dress for Less.
That was a good looking dress.
Thank you. I purchased 2 dresses for $55, but that's neither here nor there. You wanted to know where I was. I was in Atlanta at the Pivot Foundation's gala. They were having their 2nd annual Companies Who Care award ceremony, and it was absolutely amazing.
Okay. So even just mentioning the word pivot, it kind of gets us right into our topic for today, because we're talking about like how to pivot your career, whether or not you have a degree, right? And you and I, we've talked before about how lucky and fortunate it was for us to meet through a mutual contact, Linda. She knows great people. And when we talked on the phone, when we set up our initial conversation, it was just an introduction, not really knowing where the conversation was going to go. And then you shared your story with me. And when you shared your story, I said, you know what? I want you to come on to talk about this topic. So in order to set the tone, I would love for people to hear your story about the phone call and the job and all of that great stuff.
Yes. So, speaking of pivot and not having a degree, I was navigating my career for most of my career without my college degree. And what happened is I initially started in retail like a lot of teenagers do. And I stayed in that field for 18 years. And I stayed in that field because that was all I knew to do. And quite honestly, that was all I thought I could do. So I wake up in my 30s and ask myself the question, well, what do you want to be when you grow up and what are you going to do? And I didn't have an answer. What I did know is that I wanted to be able to go to church on Sundays and could not do that managing a retail store. So I strategically planned my exit. I provided my employer with a 6-week notice. I pulled all the money out of my 401k, placed my resume on monster.com, went on vacation. And I literally took a leap of faith without a job in the wings. My mother was not pleased with that decision, but I said, I have to try this. I have to see what happens, and I can always go back to retail. While on vacation, a recruiter from Wachovia Bank contacted me and said, we'd like to talk to you about 2 roles. And I thought it was a hoax because I'm like, this is internet fraud. I never applied for a job with the bank. So I literally told her I would call her back when I came back from vacation. Again, my mother was not pleased. She said, you don't have a job to go to and you're going to call someone back when you get back from vacation. I said, I have to see if it's legitimate. Sure enough, it was. I transitioned into banking, having no degree, having never worked in the industry as a financial center manager. And that's when the bulb went off for me. Skills are transferable. No one had ever taught me that lesson. And now I'm using those experiences to help others.
And I love that story, especially when you were talking about, like, I don't know if this is some sort of internet fraud going on. like why are you calling me?
Yes.
And, and even the response from your mom too. My mom would have been the exact same way.
Yes.
So before we even talk about transferable skills, I was having a conversation the other day with a close friend, and she was sharing with me that now, even though she has her degree, she went a significant amount of her career without having a degree, and there was always that cloud looming over her about her worth. Do you hear from your clients the same type of story, or what type of story do you hear from people, or even your own experience before getting your degree?
Yes. So that's such a great question because the name of my company is Confident Career Woman. Mm-hmm. And so I work with a lot of women. And I believe that women should excel at work and know their worth. And the underlying factor is confidence. The thing about confidence is no one can give us confidence. It is what we believe about ourselves. So sometimes whether we have the degree or we don't have the degree, the common thread amongst all of my clients has been whether or not they have the confidence to believe that they can maximize their career and excel. For myself personally, I didn't have the lack of confidence. There were times that I was trying to figure out, I didn't have clarity, but it wasn't a question of confidence for me because I knew that I could perform once hired. I just didn't recognize that I had so many options because I could leverage my skills. One of the mistakes that I did make throughout most of my career is I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a strategy. And those things combined with that lack of clarity is what held me back more so than my lack of confidence.
Got it. I'm just making a quick note over here on my end because I want to follow up on that in a second. But I heard this speaker once say, and he gave his own definition of confidence, and it stuck with me, and I love it. And he was saying that and it's Brendan Burchard, by the way. And he was saying that confidence is our own ability to know that we have it within us to figure it out.
Yes.
I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it even aligns to what you were saying. You knew that you could go in and figure it out, and it was other things that you were working through.
And figuring it out is so key because sometimes it's fear that keeps us stagnant because we're afraid of what could happen and how we will be perceived if we have to figure it out versus just knowing it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You always give me so many additional questions because I already know what I want to ask, and I'm like, I want to go. Okay, We're going to stay focused for a second, though.
Okay.
Let's talk about transferable skills, because you mentioned that was a huge light bulb moment for you.
Mhm.
Can you go back to that light bulb moment and really, talk to us about what you mean by transferable skills and why they can be so valuable?
Sure. So those transferable skills are those developed talents and skills that any of us possesses that we can leverage for future opportunities. So, what that looked like for me coming from retail, transitioning into banking, is I already had the leadership experience. I was fortunate enough to become a leader in my early 20s. So, when I didn't have the education, I had the experience.
Mhm.
So going into banking meant that I could leverage those leadership skills, those coaching and development skills, those sales skills, those customer service skills. And those things aren't industry specific. A lot of times we navigate our career based on industry, and that can, of course, hinder us in terms of possibilities and career options. Another thing about transferable skills that I learned along my journey is when I became an adjunct professor, I was able to still leverage those transferable skills from my experience as an entrepreneur and as an employee to become an adjunct professor. I was a college and career readiness adjunct professor for 2 years. I'd never formally taught, and my degree is not in education. And
I love
anybody can do it.
it. I tell people that all the time. If I can do these things, trust me, trust and believe. Um, so can you give us sort of a visual blueprint of how you leverage your own skills for your own career mobility? And what I like that in an earlier conversation, you reminded me, which is a great reminder to us all, career success isn't always a promotion to a promotion to a promotion. And
Yeah.
so that's why I'm intentional about saying career mobility or just career success in general.
Sure. Thank you. A lot of times, Jennifer, when we think about mobility, career mobility, we're talking about upward mobility.
Mhm.
And while I was able to experience upward mobility, I was still able to experience career wins when I took a step back, because I've done that in my career. When I took lateral moves, I've been more intentional, especially after the lesson of transferable skills, around making career decisions based on what I value and how to create balance in doing what it is I say I want to do. So before we can even experience a level of mobility, it's important for us to know what we want, to know what we don't want, to know what our value is, and to understand not just what it takes to secure that next level, whatever that looks like for us, but what it takes to sustain it. So if I had to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So if I had to offer a blueprint in terms of career mobility, the first thing I would suggest is knowing what you want as well as what you don't want. It's also understanding that sometimes you have to build before you can get to your ideal. So when I say I had to take a step back, when I became a financial center manager, people were so excited because, it's that sexy career title in comparison to I was a store manager at Bose. Fact of the matter is, I made more money managing a store in an outlet mall than I did as a financial center manager. So be really clear on understanding that sometimes you have to build in order to get to your ideal. I took a pay cut when I went into banking, but that experience opened me up to the relocation to Charlotte, North Carolina. It opened me up to skills in a different industry, which made me more marketable. And it also gave me an opportunity to expand my relationships and grow my network.
So what's so interesting about what you just said is that it reminds me of the first time I got an offer to enter management. And because entering management meant that I was going to be on salary, and I knew that as an individual contributor, I was making a lot of money through overtime, that I was going to have to take a significant pay cut. And it took a lot of time for me to be able to make that decision. But when we started talking about having a plan and having clarity and things like that, I knew that getting my feet into leadership was the right path, and it's been the game changer. So I know that exact type of moment that you're talking about. But going back to what you were saying before, knowing what you do want and knowing what you don't want, is that what you mean by clarity?
Yes, that is exactly what I mean by clarity. It is so important to not only know what you want, know what you don't want, know what your value is, and know who you are. So, a lot of times in my working experience with women, it has been a glaring similarity and recurring theme that we, a lot of times as women, we define who we are in relationship to others and or our title. So when we say, who are you? I am a mother, I am a wife, I am a SVP. But when you talk about, again, those transferable skills and having clarity, and understanding that you are strategic, that you are futuristic, that you are a developer, that you are an encourager. Those things are a part of your competitive advantage, and you can leverage those in your career to get to your next, to experience career mobility. But it's extremely important to know who you are, as well as what you want, what you don't want, and where you're going.
I like that. I like it a lot. And as we're talking about career pivots, so you went from the retail industry to the banking industry, and now you're also a career coach, you an author.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. How did you go from where you were to where you are today as a coach and author?
Whew, how much time do we have, Jennifer? So funny thing is my career story and my path has been non-traditional, if you will, and I consider myself a late bloomer. So I talked a little bit about how I started in retail, even in high school, part-time retail sales, transitioned into banking. As a result of that leap of faith, leaving retail, going into banking, I relocated after 18 months as a financial center manager to a city where I knew no one. I took a role as a call center supervisor and absolutely hated it. And that's when I discovered that I wanted to do what it was I was great at. And that is interviewing and coaching and developing others to succeed in their career. So I didn't necessarily go into my business knowing that I would be an author. It came through a series of steps into the unknown, into the area of faith, into the unfamiliar. Once I decided to launch my business, I recognized how much I've always loved to write. So before I became an author, I was a career contributor for Yahoo. I was also a contributor for the Ladders. And then I decided to leverage my content through books. So now I have 3 books. The most recent, Confident Career Woman, Ditch Perfection, Play Bigger, and Make Power Moves. But I ended up being an author based on a series of steps.
Okay. I like that. And you mentioned faith.
Mm-hmm.
And, through our conversation, I am inferring that faith is a big part of your coaching. Am I right about that? And if so, how do you infuse it into your coaching?
You are 100% right about that. I would not be who I am, let me say first and foremost, without everything that God has allowed me to do based on who I am. And so when it comes to faith, I pray for my clients. I pray for the ones I have, the ones I don't have. I pray about my content. I pray for my followers. I pray for partnerships because that is a fundamental part of who I am. But the thing that I love about faith, as uncomfortable as it can be, I should say, there is this level of encouragement and hope that I love infusing into my coaching because people come to me because they need help. And sometimes because they don't see just how awesome they really truly are. A lot of times we show up to do the work, but we're so busy doing the work, we don't track our accomplishments. We don't talk about our wins. We don't talk about a lot of the things that we do well because, quite frankly, as women, sometimes we help more so than we go out into the forefront and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I bring to the table. So having that level of faith and a level of discernment to be able to say, this is how I should navigate this conversation. This is how I should pose this question so that this person understands just how awesome they are and how they should show up when they talk about who they are and the value they bring to an organization.
Man, I love that you bring that up because I tell people all the time that from a coaching standpoint, before I can ever get to the tactical, I have to maneuver through a lot of the emotional, a lot of what
Yes.
the clients are bringing to the table about how they see themselves overall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd be interested to hear about so let's talk about some of your clients, right? Some of the clients may be in a situation that says, that's me. I don't have a degree. I have a lot of experience. I want to do a career pivot. Before you can get to the tactical with them, what are some of those emotional things that you're also having to help them to navigate?
One of the biggest things that I found in terms of emotional, and then I'll get to ageism in a minute, is so many people think I have to get my resume together. It's so much more than just getting your resume together, because at the end of the day, someone can do your resume for you. No one can manage your career for you, and no one can show up to the interview for you. So a part of the emotional barriers, I won't even call it baggage, barriers that people face, one of them is rejection. It's, I'm doing what I know to do, but yet I'm not being able to grow. I'm not being able to advance. And the cure for that is resilience. Another thing is mindset. As a man or woman thinketh, so is he or she. So what are the things that not just we need to learn, but what are the things that we need to unlearn? Some of that unpacking goes all the way back to childhood. Even for myself, I can remember I could not stand to talk in front of people. I had workshop services, on my website. And I'm like, well, who's going to facilitate these? I guess I'm going to have to, since I put them on my website. But I hated speaking in front of people. It wasn't until a mentor said, Erika, when did you first realize that you hate speaking in front of people, that I recognized as a third grader in elementary school, I had to speak in front of an audience at a PTA meeting, and I dreaded it. I didn't want to do it. And my mother said, oh, you're going to do it, and you're going to accept that certification that they're giving you too for all of this hard work you've done academically. But I carried that 8-year-old around with me all of my adult life. It wasn't until she posed that question that I recognized that is what was hindering me from speaking in front of people. It wasn't even about ability. So it's the mindset, it is the learning, it is the unlearning, it is attacking that rejection with resilience. And also, when I think about some of those barriers that we have, Jennifer, that may not necessarily be emotional, but a lot of my clients are experienced. I mean, these are women who have experienced powerful wins in their career, yet they're now saying, I want to pivot. I want to do something different. But the industry is looking at millennials. They're looking for younger workers. And my suggestion to them is turn this into your competitive advantage. All of your years of experience and expertise and education, those are things that you can leverage as you continue to navigate your career. Don't ever count yourself out, ever.
Okay. And were there times in your own career that you felt that you had to overcompensate, and for the sake of not having a degree? And if so, what's some advice you would give to people who are saying, that's me, like I feel like I have to overcompensate?
Did I ever overcompensate? I would say yes. And I would say more so earlier in my career, because I knew that I didn't have the education. And so, you hear people say, well, I have to work twice as hard. I wouldn't say that I worked twice as hard. I would say that I worked smart. I would say that I always showed up well. People have known for years that when they get me, they get professionalism, they get preparation, they get performance, they get positivity. And so in terms of overcompensating, every culture is different. Understand the culture, do a lot of observations, and know what it takes in order for you to succeed based on who you are. But what I found is in those moments when I thought, maybe I should overcompensate, maybe I should, do things a certain way, I never wanted to lose my authenticity.
Okay. So going back to just the concept of making a career shift or a career pivot. My assumption is that you're not saying, hey, if you wake up this morning and decide you want to do it, then go and do it. It's because you mentioned something about a strategy. What do you want to say to people that are thinking about a career pivot in their own planning and strategy?
Yeah. So let me take a step back because I was shaking my head no, but there is a component of that. Like you have to give yourself the first yes. So definitely give yourself permission to do it, but be strategic about it, right? So when I talk about having a plan, having a strategy, have you looked to see, even though in your head, this is my ideal, this is what I believe I want, what is this role going to entail, not just now, but within the next 5 years? Are you going to take a step into a role that's not even going to be relevant within the next 24 months? Know what's happening in the industry. Know what's happening beyond what it is you say that you want. It's one thing to get something, Jennifer. It's something else to sustain it. Be real clear about what it takes to succeed now and what it takes for you to succeed in the future. Be real clear about how much time it takes in order for you to land that role. Because again, your resume has to position you. You have to be prepared to target that resume for every position you say you want. And it looks different with different companies. If you say, I want to be a project manager, it's totally different with Fifth Third Bank than it is in terms of Bank of America. Those job descriptions are written by two different people. So it takes a lot of time to land your next. Also, be really clear about your support system. Success is never a solo act. The people around you, are they helping you get to next? And sometimes we have to reassess our circle in order for us to get to our next. All of those things go into strategy. How much money will you need to make when you land this role to sustain yourself and to grow? All of those things we need to have answers to before we give a yes to that offer that we anticipate.
Okay. We were talking earlier in our conversation about transferable skills and the ones that you recognize for yourself that you have.
Yes.
What are some common transferable skills that people don't even realize that they have that you want them to know today if they're thinking about their next job?
Sure. The first one that pops into my head is leadership. I know, at least for myself, when I used to hear leadership, I automatically thought about leading a team, having direct reports. But that's not necessarily true. Leading yourself and being able to produce results, even in an individual contributor role, you can demonstrate that you are a leader. I would also say collaboration. Um, a lot of times we're in team environments, we rely on others to produce results, but we don't look at ourselves as collaborators. Another skill that comes to mind that's needed in any and every industry, of course, is communication. We do that an awful lot, but we just don't think about it. There's so many transferable skills, whether it's administrative, whether it's organization, whether it's strategy, whether it's planning. There are so many things that we do in our day to day that we don't look at as skills, especially because we do them well. I highly recommend Googling or researching transferable skill listing and going through and looking at the skills that you possess and having, I call it a document. You can name it whatever you want. Some people take notes in their phones. Everybody, doesn't pull up a Word document and save it to a cloud or to their tablet. But just make sure that you are really clear on the skills that you possess that can open opportunities for you in the future that maybe you haven't considered.
Okay. So, what about that person who is listening to this and they know that they've always been that person to say, I'm not going to leave here. I've been here for 15 years and I'm never going to get the type of position like the position that I have here, and no one else is going to hire me. What would you say to that person? And do you run across that person that's just afraid to go?
I I run across those types of people everywhere. When when they're checking me out at Walmart, I'm literally coaching people and holding up the line. I'm like, just take my card, we'll talk. Yes, so I do. I run across those people on a very regular basis, and it goes back to knowing who you are and having that confidence to believe that there's more. Anyone who has been in a role for 15 years, anyone who's been in a role for 5 years, my question is why? Why have you decided to stay where you are for 5 years? And a lot of times, what you get is, well, there's no growth here. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do next. If there's no growth there, the question then is, well, where can we find growth? Well, I don't know, which goes back to clarity, right? And a lot of times, underneath that clarity, to your point, is that fear. So it's showing and having the conversation with others to let them know you're more valuable than you realize. And a conversation around the skills you possess and the ones that are attractive to employers, as well as what it is you want to do, short term and long term, and creating that plan for you to get there usually shifts everyone that I have a conversation with, because we're able to then look at them in a way that they haven't looked at themselves before. When we talk about my story and the fact that I was in retail for 18 years, went into banking as a financial center manager, relocated to a city where I knew no one, had no friends, then ended up becoming a call center supervisor while working full time, obtained my bachelor's degree, launched a business. I'm writing career articles at that time, growing a business, transition into an individual contributor role intentionally. I retired from leadership because I wanted to, not because I had to. I did that based on what it was I said that I wanted and where it was I saw myself going. So
Right.
anyone and everyone will need to know, and it doesn't matter what level of the organization you're on, know who you are, know what you want. And even if you don't know how to get there, be okay with asking for help. Be okay with saying to someone, you know what, I've been in this role for 15 years and I'm not experiencing any growth. And I know that there's something else. I just don't know what it is. What I found more often than not, Jennifer, is even if I'm having a conversation with someone and they're not the ones to help me, they know someone who can.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people that when you're networking with a person, a phenomenal person, do not leave that conversation until you ask them if they have a recommendation of an additional phenomenal person just like them that you should
Yes.
meet. You expand your networks overall. So were you going to say something?
I was going to say that is so true, so true. And even for myself, I did not see the importance of relationships for most of my career. I was taught and trained, especially in retail, to cultivate those relationships that generated revenue for the company, but not my own personal network. And I heard someone say, and his name is Ryan Kahn, and he used to host MTV's Hired. I met him at a conference once in Puerto Rico, and he said, your network is your net worth. And that has stuck with me because I'm like, man, I never associated the people that I talk to, the people that I'm around with my net worth. And it's so true. Relationships are so
I,
valuable.
I like that a lot. Your network is your net worth.
Yes.
I happen to be, I don't know why I was Googling this, but I was looking at different organizations that are making some changes around degree requirements. And I know that some of these organizations are doing it to broaden their diversity within the applicants for the job. And so, and then there are other companies that are kind of going on this list as well too. So you have companies like Ernst & Young, Google, Costco, Whole Foods, Hilton, Publix, the grocery store. Like they're saying that although we're going to pay attention to, someone's full resume, degree included or not included, we're not making it a requirement that all the degrees are necessary to do a job. And I think that it's sending a great message too, which is the same message that you're sending, that experience is extremely important. and the experience that you can transfer is extremely important too. So, um, because I was playing around on my Google search and I found it, I figured I would point that out. Any thoughts about this?
Yes, several. The first one is I commend employers for recognizing that doing things the traditional way is not going to help them sustain talent in their organization long term. For myself, it was go to school, get a degree, save some money, you'll be fine. I woke up and realized this isn't working. And so I had to figure out what it was that I was doing that needed to change. So when employers say, you know what, it's not that we do not value education, that we do not value the educational experience that you're bringing, but what we do recognize is there are times where you need the experience more so than the education, and there are times that you need both. So now they are really walking the diversity and inclusion conversation instead of just having it. I will also say that a lot of times you have people who are extremely bright, extremely talented, extremely creative and innovative. They just don't do well at school. So, how many people are you overlooking because you are saying, I have to have these strict educational requirements? What about that person with the entrepreneurial spirit who can take your company and department to the next level? So I'm
Right.
so grateful that employers have the courage to say, you know what, we're looking for the best of the best. And sometimes it doesn't look the way it has in years past.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
And those are really the questions that I wanted to ask you. But I'm curious for the person who is listening to this
Hmm.
and is saying, she's really talking about me right now. Like I now know that it's me. What final advice would you share with him or her in particular?
I would say, one, know that you can't change your past, but that you can learn from it and use those lessons to accelerate where you want to go. The second thing I would say is never stop learning. And I know for myself, I used to consider learning as you have to go to school. While you can do that, there are so many additional ways to learn now. We have this podcast, and thank you so much, Jennifer, for your vision and how you are helping so many of us personally and professionally. We have You're welcome. We have YouTube, right? We have articles. There are blogs out there. There's so many ways that we can learn. So continue to learn and expand who you are mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically so that you can be in the best shape possible to present your best self. The third thing I would say is have the confidence and the courage to go after what it is you say you want strategically. And last but certainly not least, do not operate from your limitations and your lack. Self
That's
limiting
right.
beliefs, we tend to listen to our weaknesses and what we don't have and operate from that space instead of saying, you know what, if there's one great thing I can do really well, this is it. And I know that this is it. And I'm going to operate in that space. That is where we all need to be.
Yes, that is so true and great advice.
Thank
That
you.
is. You were mentioning at the opening of this podcast that
Mhm.
you've been to several events in the last few days or weeks.
Yes.
So this is a good question for you. What's going on in your world? What's happening over there? What are you up to, and where can people find you?
Oh, Lord, what's going on in my world? I'll make this brief.
Okay.
So, what I will share with you is I launched a free online course called How to Communicate with Confidence and Credibility. So, for
Love it.
everyone who is looking to advance during the interview, this course can be found on confidentcareerwoman.com. Again, it's how to communicate with confidence and credibility. There is a resume resource in there. There are examples of what an effective response looks like, not just to those behavioral based questions where you give the star response, but also to those questions like, tell me about yourself. That's still hem people up in 2018. Excuse me. What I will also add is people can find me online. They can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Confident Career Woman. They can find me on Twitter at Ericka_Spradley. And they can also visit my website at erickaspradley.com.
Great. And I'll make sure that we have all of your details within our details section too, so people do not miss that. I'm sure there will be a lot of people who do want to follow up and talk with you too.
Thank you.
So I want to do with you the same thing that we do with all of our other lovely guests. When we close our show, we close them with what we call flash questions.
Sure.
So I ask you 3 questions, and I want to know the first thing that comes to mind for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Question number 1, it's never too late to
create the life you want.
Number 2, I get inspired by.
I get inspired by my grandmother, my mother, and excuse me, my niece Zoe. So real quick, my grandmother is now in her 80s, and I am so amazed by what she has been able to do with so little. I'm talking middle school education, raised 9 kids, a host of grandkids, great-grands, including myself, and still impacting our family in ways that we can't imagine. My mother has had multiple sclerosis since I was 6. I have never heard my mother complain about anything. And then there's my niece Zoe. She was born last December, 1 pound, and she is the epitome of fighter. You know, now she's rolling around saying "dada," saying "huh." And I'm just amazed at the strength of and I can't say women because Zoe's not even one, but my grandmother, my mother, and even Zoe demonstrates. So they inspire me.
That's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that there.
Sure.
And the third question, career success means?
To me, career success is being true to my values. And those are excellence, passion, integrity, and compassion. Career success for me is becoming the world's leading career coach for women, helping them excel at work, know their worth, making sure that they can progress professionally, perform exceptionally, and define career success on their terms.
Gosh, I love your passion and your
Thank
enthusiasm. And from the first time we had the conversation on the phone, you are definitely extremely authentic, and I bet your clients can see it too. And I can't wait for the audience to hear this podcast and to hear you. So, Erika, I appreciate you, and thanks for being on But What About Me?
And thank you for having me, Jennifer. I'm sure we'll have more conversations in the near future. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to tune in next week because we have so much more in store for you. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and keep glowing.